Hello, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Picnic at Hanging Rock, playing Off-Broadway at the Greenwich House Theater. Now, before I jump into this ambitious new musical, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow this channel and allows me to get press tickets to see shows like Picnic at Hanging Rock. So, I went into this knowing nothing, which I normally like to do. Although I'm going to say for this show, I think it is important to know something about it. This is based on a famous Australian novel by the same name, which was written by Joan Lindsay in 1967. And the story is framed as a true mystery about these girls who go on this picnic on Valentine's Day and disappear. This story was also turned into a legendary movie made in 1975 by director Peter Weir that's known for its dreamlike mood and this unresolved disappearance of these girls on Valentine's Day. Over the years, there's been multiple stage adaptations of this story, including musicals as well as plays. But this version, written by book and lyrics by Hilary Bell and music and arrangements by Greta Gerter-Gold, has been workshopped and now it's being staged at a small off-Broadway space. This is a very small theater off-Broadway, but this is a very big production. The cast has 15 or 16 people in it and there's a 5-piece band. This show is less about a plot-driven narrative and it's more about an haunting, enigmatic, atmospheric story. In fact, the headline on the press materials I think would be very important to put on here because there was no playbill. I just had this to go off of. But in the press materials it says, Picnic at Hanging Rock, a revolutionary female-led rock musical rooted in an iconic Australian novel and film. I wish they would have put that on here, right here, just because it would have been helpful for me to just kind of calibrate what it is I was seeing. In retrospect, I do remember hearing a lot of Australian dialects in the audience and when I went to the restroom, and it makes sense now. So what is Picnic at Hanging Rock about? Well, it is a story set in 1900, and it's about a group of schoolgirls and a teacher from a Australian boarding school who go on a outing, this picnic, to a geological formation called Hanging Rock, which is this old volcanic formation. And a few of the girls and a teacher disappear without explanation. And the school and the community are left to grapple with this disappearance and the meaning of what happened. This musical doesn't try to solve the mystery. Instead, through scenes that are not always in chronological order, it explores the moments before, during, and after the disappearance. So there is a lot to enjoy in this production. This has been lovingly put together. They have not spared expense. The set design, the lighting, the costumes, the performances, the music, the orchestrations, and the arrangements. Probably the strongest part of the show for me was the music, the orchestrations, the arrangements are absolutely beautiful. And they really established this world and the atmosphere very well. The performers all earnestly embody their characters with some standout vocal performances, especially Erin Davey as the headmistress of this school. The book writing is very smart in the way that it breaks up the narrative, because I feel like if it would have just gone chronologically, we're going on a picnic, it could have become very dull very quickly because not a lot really happens. But these flashbacks kept me engaged with the show. This is very heavy female cast, and I think this show would do really well at universities because you've got like 10 schoolgirls and 3 teachers, and then there are 2 young men in the role in the show as well. And I felt like their roles were kind of underdeveloped and underutilized. The 2 male characters, one is a wealthy British man that has come to Australia, one of the colonizers, and then he has a native that is working as a guide for him. And I think the inclusion of the native was a very interesting idea that wasn't really fully explored, because this disappearance of these girls could be about the natural world fighting back against colonialization and swallowing up these girls who didn't belong here in Australia. But these male roles felt a little superfluous to me. They're exploring the land, and later in the show they're looking for these girls who have been lost. But I felt like their participation in the story didn't really change the outcome. Probably the most challenging part of this show is that it is a mystery that is never resolved. And I know for myself and many people in the audience, when we're presented a mystery, we're used to finding out all the details and slowly putting the pieces together and then having an answer. You do not get that in this show. The music is gorgeous and varied, but I felt sometimes the songs didn't really go anywhere. We started the song and we ended the song kind of the same place. The songs don't really function to move a narrative forward as much as they do to explore character and really give this piece an atmosphere. It's mostly written in kind of a folk rock style, although there was one song that was written in ragtime that kind of stood out for me because it was the first time that I felt like there was a song that was actually written in the style of the period. Of the book, music, and lyrics, I feel like the lyrics may be the weakest part because a lot of the hooks for the songs didn't really feel hook-worthy. You know, the main line of the song didn't really grab me. And although the lyrics are quite poetic in places, leaving the show, I remembered the music more than I really remembered any one specific lyric from a song. And as much as I enjoyed the flashbacks and the flash-forwards that kept the narrative interesting, it did get confusing at times as to exactly where we were in time. Sometimes there'd be a flashback and I was like, was this a year ago, 2 years ago, or was this morning? Ultimately, this felt less like a story that needed to be resolved, and it felt more like an exploration of young women on the verge of womanhood and not knowing what's coming next. There's a really strong through line about repression, expectation, and the fear of growing up, about girls realizing what their future holds for them, and in some cases, wanting to disappear rather than face it. And when I look at the musical through that lens, it lands a lot better and makes more sense to me. I just wish that the musical at the start really made that thematic idea more clear to me, especially for someone who's coming into this musical cold. So, was I bored? Was I confused? You know, I wasn't bored because I felt these flashbacks forward and backwards were keeping me on my toes. The music is very exciting. The performances are very energized. This show is doing a lot. It maybe is doing too much for this small little space. I mean, they are crammed in on this little stage, but the set designer did a great job of continuing the rocks and the bushes of the Australian scenery from the stage out into the audience. They also use the center aisle of the audience as a playing space, and at one point they use the side wall for a scene as well. So I felt the director, Portia Krieger, made really good use of this space, but it was a lot of people for a very small stage. And I just feel like this feels like this wants to be a much bigger musical, and it really deserves to be on a bigger stage. So, not bored, really engaged with it. I also felt the choreography by Mayte Natalio was very good and energized, but then again, it felt like a lot on this small space. Like sometimes the girls were running into each other. I felt for this space, the cast actually could have been smaller. The whole thing I felt for this space could have been trimmed down. So was I confused? Well, one confusion I had right from the beginning, which is going to make me sound so stupid, but because I knew nothing about the show, I didn't know it was set in Australia. And you say, Matt, but the dialects. Well, the dialects are all British, standard RP for the most part, because these colonizers have come from England. This is year 1900. So I wasn't sure if we were in a British boarding school, and things started to pull at me and go, are we not in England? Are we in Australia? And I vacillated back and forth, and it wasn't until the native character arrived that I went, okay, we're in Australia, I get it. So if there'd been a program just with a time and a location, that could have told me. But honestly, because people don't always read their programs, I think it's smart to really make sure you have something that grounds us in the time and the location right at the beginning of the show. I was confused by what the show was doing because it kept using flashbacks to give me more little information about the disappearance of these girls and their teacher that I thought we were heading towards a conclusion. Although I do have to say it did a good job at doing what the novel does, which is make it feel like it's a true story. It's entirely fictional, but it's meant to feel like it's a historic true story event. And when something's a true story, then we do accept there's no solution to the mystery, because if it's based in reality, then you would have to make up something. But the weird thing is that it is fictional. So in adapting this, they do have a choice. Maybe they could give us a solution, or, which feels untrue to the novel, but my suggestion for it is if they could give us some kind of conclusion that is otherworldly, that is magic realism, that if we understand that these women were so afraid of becoming adults and having to face what the world in 1900s held for them, that they would rather disappear. To me, to lean into the magic realism of that they somehow entered some other realm, and it kind of touched on it. There was one moment where the three girls are going through an archway and one girl can't enter. And that, I wanted more of that. And then we later find out, spoiler alert, that when they find her, her fingers are all torn up. So maybe this idea that she couldn't enter and she was clawing at the rocks trying to escape. To me, that is the most interesting idea. And if we could have somehow come back to this magic realism and this idea that they escaped reality, that to me is more interesting. But the show is so set as being so truthful and so real that I was expecting some kind of realistic solution to this issue. Also, I was just confused by, there were moments where like this young man is trying to find the women and he's found by this native guide. He's found unconscious, clutching this girl's watch. Didn't understand what that was about. There's the Erin Davies character, Mrs. Apple something. She's the headmistress. When she finds out some tragic news, she kind of goes crazy and climbs up the stairs and runs off stage, and I didn't quite understand what was going on with her. There was a lot of just narrative moments that I didn't fully grasp. So, was I bored? Was I confused? Not bored, but a lot of confusions throughout. There's a lot of me in my head stepping out. Where are we? What's going on? So I wasn't really in the piece the way I would have liked to have been. So let's wrap it up. This is a beautifully produced, thoughtfully made musical. It has a lot of ambition, but it also asks its audience to sit in ambiguity without really knowing why. If you're someone who enjoys atmosphere, symbolism, open-ended storytelling, and if you're interested in stories about young women navigating impossible futures, I think there's a lot here for you to enjoy. Just don't go in expecting answers. I feel like a lot of young performers will really be drawn to this show. So if you are a young performer looking for new material, if you're in the university, this is a show I think you really want to check out because it has a lot for you. I didn't mention this earlier, but this show seems to be very heavily influenced by Spring Awakening. It's very much same time period. It's got that kind of musical energy. There are moments in the show that really reminded me of Spring Awakening. So if you're really into that kind of show, then you're definitely going to want to check out Picnic at Hanging Rock. So this is in a very small theater, so any seat I think is going to be great. And I don't know about discount tickets yet, but I'm sure there will be some, so keep your eyes open for that. All right, thanks for watching this review. Thanks for hanging with me, and I will see you at the next one. I mean, I won't see you, but you'll see me. All right, bye.
I wanna stay inside the play, keep me engaged, keep me